Have you ever wondered what would happen if Yellowstone exploded without warning? What if someone died, saw Jesus, and came back with an urgent message about it? In today's video, you'll hear the true story of Melissa Crane, a nurse who saw judgment coming and now needs to warn you. Watch until the end, subscribe to the channel, and comment below which city you're watching from. This message needs to reach as many people as possible. I was an emergency room nurse at St. Vincent Hospital in Billings, Montana, just a few miles from Yellowstone. My days were filled with sirens, blood, and rushing about. There was no room to think about myself, much less the end of the world. I believed in God, yes, but like someone who believes the sun will rise tomorrow, automatic, distant. Until that night, he ripped me from my own life. It was a Friday. There was one of those thunderstorms where the sky seems to be falling to earth. The entire hospital shook with every clap of thunder. We were without power, with the generators oscillating. I was treating a patient with a severe arrhythmia when I felt something strange in my own chest. A stabbing pain, a heat rising up my left arm, sweat, trembling, and then blackout. Literally, the lights flickered, everything went dark, and so did my vision. I heard distant screams. My body fell to the floor, but something inside me was gone. I saw myself from above, lying on the cold floor of the trauma room, while nurses and doctors tried to revive me. I should have panicked, but I felt emptiness, absolute silence, as if the world had stopped breathing. I floated upward, breaking through the ceiling, the building, the clouds, and then darkness. A darkness so dense, it seemed alive. There, time didn't exist, just me and nothingness, until a light began to shine in the distance, and from it emerged him. It wasn't a symbolic image. It was Jesus, alive, real. His gaze was love and pain at the same time. When he spoke, he didn't use words. It was as if the truth invaded my being without sound. "Daughter, there is no more time." These were the first words he placed in my spirit, and soon after, he showed me the earth, seen from above, as a living, pulsating sphere. But the focus was on the heart of America, Yellowstone. I saw it. I felt it. And it wasn't a maybe. It was destiny. He told me clearly, Yellowstone will explode, without warning, with no chance of escape, and it will be an act of judgment. In that vision, the neighboring states, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Colorado, were swallowed by a black cloud that rose like a beast released from the abyss. I screamed, but I had no voice. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. It was as if he were saying, "See, witness, you have been chosen to warn." And it was there, in that out-of-body encounter between death and the divine, that everything changed. My heart no longer beat, but my soul burned with the urgency of something the world insists on ignoring. The judgment has begun. The vision changed as quickly as lightning. I was pulled in, as if my soul had been swallowed by a whirlpool. Suddenly, I was flying over Yellowstone, but it wasn't the calm park in tourist photos. It was a living creature, breathing, groaning. The earth there wasn't sleeping. It writhed, as if something colossal wanted to break free. And then, Jesus spoke again within me, like a gentle thunder. They play with the earth, but they don't know that it carries my judgment. I saw the geologists in their control rooms. Monitors trembled with chain earthquakes. Graphs soared to alarming peaks, but on their faces, denial. One said, "It's just natural movements." Another murmured, "Nothing out of the ordinary." But Jesus made me feel what they couldn't see, the panic hidden behind their eyes. They knew, but they were afraid to say it, and it was too late. Then I saw a crack, not a sound, but a sensation, as if the ground had cracked from within. And it was at that moment that Yellowstone opened its mouth like an ancient monster, spewing fire, smoke, sulfur, and destruction. There was no siren. There was no warning. Just a sickly greenish light exploding from the ground, illuminating the night like the apocalypse. A black column of ash rose so high it swallowed the sky. It was as if God had ripped the roof off America. Trees caught fire in seconds, lakes evaporated, and a shower of glass and dust fell to the earth. But that was only the beginning. I was pulled even higher and saw, as if on a living map, 4 states being wiped off the face of the earth. Montana, a carpet of ash. Entire towns buried. screams muffled by the suffocating cloud. Wyoming, gone like a snuffed candle. The rocks melting, the houses swallowed. Idaho, rivers turning black, the ground cracking like stale bread, life slipping away in seconds. And then, Colorado, my home, my street, my hospital. I saw my own neighborhood being covered by a dense, deadly dust. My house turned into shadow. My children, who I didn't know were still alive, were there, running. But where to? There was no way out. No light. No hope. Even in spirit, I felt the heat, a heat that burned the soul. And I heard, deep down, a sound I will never forget. The cry of creation. The earth itself wept. And it was at that moment that I understood. This wasn't just nature. It was judgment. It was a response. It was the wrath of a God who still loves, but who no longer waits. I thought I'd seen it all. The fire, the ash, the cities disappearing like dust in the wind. But Jesus wasn't done yet. He told me, without moving his lips, but straight to my soul, "Now you will see what will come upon the survivors." I was thrown forward in time. I saw people covered in ash, walking like ghosts through the crumbling streets. They didn't know where they were or what to do. Burned faces, directionless eyes, mothers holding children who were no longer breathing. It was post-chaos, and it was worse than I could have imagined. It wasn't a movie. It was the end of normality. Supermarkets, emptied in 48 hours. People fought over a pack of moldy cookies. I saw elderly people being pushed to the ground, killed by water bottles. Despair had taken over everything. There was no order. There was no government. Only ruin. And then, the cold. A supernatural cold. It was no ordinary winter. It was a freezing darkness. The ash cloud had blotted out the sun. The days turned to darkness. The nights, an abyss. I saw thermometers plummeting. People freezing to death inside their homes. The fireplaces were no longer working. The electricity had died along with the satellites. Jesus showed me a family kneeling in a basement, trembling. They were praying, but not for food nor for help. They were praying for forgiveness. And there, in that deathly cold, an invisible flame enveloped them, the flame of his presence. And then I heard, "These are mine. I will keep them." But outside, the opposite. I saw neighbors going crazy, people pulling out their hair, laughing and crying at the same time. One man screamed, looking up at the sky, "Why?" And then he slammed into a wall until it shattered. It was as if sanity had been taken along with the oxygen. And yet, the remaining newscasts denied everything. I saw screens shaking, newscasters, voices saying, "We're overcoming. The situation is under control." Lie. I saw a crowd watching, as if mesmerized. Even in the face of destruction, there were still those who did not believe. That's when Jesus told me something that broke my heart. Some will only believe when the fire touches their own bones. That's when I saw the churches. Some were packed. People were shouting, crying out, fasting like never before. But others were locked, abandoned. Pastors had fled. Others had denied everything until the end. And now they were lost, without faith, without a voice. And then he spoke. "The separation has begun. The wheat from the chaff. Those who love me and those who used me. I am sifting the earth." I trembled. It wasn't just the end of an era. It was the beginning of judgment. And few were ready. I was still out of my body, floating above the world. But it wasn't the same planet anymore. It was as if a veil had been torn away, and what had been hidden was now exposed. Jesus showed me that the signs were already among us, for years, but no one paid attention, not even the believers. I watched old newscasts flash before my eyes like rewound tapes. Earthquakes in unlikely places, droughts devastating crops in the south, unseasonable frosts, swarms, silent famine, prices rising while everyone said, "It's just the market." But Jesus told me firmly, "These are the blasts of the trumpet," and the people covered their ears. Then I heard, literally, like a sound in the spirit, a trumpet, low, slow, unmistakable. She made my soul tremble. It was as if heaven itself were crying out, "Wake up," and yet the earth remained deaf. I saw churches trading repentance for entertainment. I saw services where no one talked about sin, only about self-esteem. I saw pastors reading verses as slogans for success. And Jesus showed me a marching crowd dressed in white, but inside, had empty eyes and darkened hearts. "They say they follow me," he said, "but if I called them now, few would recognize me." At that moment, I was led to see the sky open and something fall, like a flaming meteor, enormous, roaring across the sky. As it fell, the sea split into black waves. Ships disappeared, coasts were devastated, and I heard the words of Revelation echoing within me. A burning mountain was thrown into the sea. The waters turned red, bitter, and I saw children crying, mothers trying to filter the water with cloths, while death spread without shape or smell, disease, despair, scarcity. The world was sinking into a new era, the era of consequence. Jesus then showed me the darkening heavens. It wasn't night. It was a spiritual blackout. The moon was a red dot. The sun barely shone. "The lamps of the world are going out," he said, "because they rejected my light." I saw, with shocking clarity, what comes after the volcano: hunger, lines of people waiting for stale bread, military rationing, fights in the lines, chaos in the warehouses, and behind it all, I saw a dark structure taking shape: control, surveillance, microchips, and the people accepting it, afraid, hungry. And that's when Jesus said something that cut my soul. They will trade freedom for security, but they will lose both. I saw the whole world trembling, and only a few, very few, were kneeling on the ground, their eyes on the sky. They were surrounded by light. They were like torches in the midst of destruction. And Jesus said to me, "Get ready, because the final scream is coming, and it will come like a thief in the night." After hearing the trumpets, Jesus took me back to the heart of destruction. Yellowstone kept spewing death. The sky was pitch black. The ash cloud had already covered the 4 states, and now it was marching like an army against the rest of the country. But what I saw next took my breath away. The whole earth began to vibrate, but it was no ordinary earthquake. It was as if the planet were screaming, a deep groan coming from the core. Distant mountains began to creak. Mountain ranges buckled like paper. It was as if the foundations of the world were coming loose. And then I looked to the sky, hoping for help. But what I saw was response. The heavens responded to the earth's groan with fire. Lightning flashed where there were no clouds. Flames fell as if angels of wrath were throwing flaming spears. It was as if heaven were at war with the sin of earth. And Jesus said to me, "Creation can no longer bear it. It cries out for the justice that men reject." In that moment, I was transported to the heart of the United States. The Mississippi was dark, the cornfields had turned to mud, and the animals were dead or running wild. And then, the ground broke. I saw cracks opening like hungry mouths, houses falling inward, people being swallowed alive. There was no running. There was no fighting. America itself was being divided, literally. And Jesus said, "As they divided my name, my gospel, my truth, so they will be divided." I saw the oceans encroaching on lands that were once safe. I saw the Gulf of Mexico spewing waves of poisonous oil and gas. I saw dams collapsing. I saw cities submerged. I saw missiles being launched from the east. But before they touched the ground, judgment itself preceded them. It was as if God said, "It will not be man who destroys everything. It will be me, and it will be for justice." And even in the midst of all this, I saw something that gave me hope and terror at the same time. An angel holding a cup. She shone like liquid gold. But Jesus said to me, "It is the cup of the last chance, and it is being poured out on those who can still hear." But few looked up. Most were kneeling, not in prayer but in despair, begging for food, for shelter, for help. But help no longer came from governments. It didn't come from leaders. There was only one way now. Look up. And Jesus said to me with a voice that made the entire universe tremble within me, "When everything that can be shaken is shaken, only that which is established in me will remain." After the sound of the earth groaning and the sky responding with fire, I thought the vision was nearing its end. But no, Jesus took me to a place that seemed to be outside of time. There was no ground, no sky, no air, just a dark expanse. And in the center, suspended as if floating in time itself, was a gigantic clock, made of golden light and fire gears. The hands were moving slowly, until, suddenly, stopped. And then, with a crack that resounded inside me like thunder, The larger hand advanced to midnight. It wasn't just a symbolic time, it was the point of no return. Jesus looked at me, and for the first time, his eyes weren't just filled with love, they were teary-eyed. He said, "The time of mercy is running out, and many are still asleep." Immediately, the scene changed. I saw big cities, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. I saw people going about their normal lives, eating in restaurants, going to work, laughing in cafes, posting videos, shopping. But over each of these cities, a invisible shadow. It was like a dark fog that no one seemed to notice. And then I heard in the spirit, "They don't realize they're breathing judgment." I looked at the clock again. When the hands hit the exact center of midnight, something happened. The sound of a final trumpet, louder, sharper, more painful. It was like the sound of a seal being broken in the sky, a sound that cut not to the ears, but to the soul. And soon after, I saw the seals of the apocalypse opening. One by one, I saw the white horse, then the red, the black and the pale, peace being taken away, wars breaking out on every continent, famine spreading like a plague, and finally, death. But not just any death, death without dignity, without explanation. Jesus then showed me the churches of America. Some had their doors open, with people crying, repenting, kneeling on the ground, but others were packed, yes, but with people singing happy songs, having picnics, dancing, taking selfies, completely oblivious to the spiritual battle going on around them. He said, "They sing as if nothing is happening, but the time is serious. I don't want parties, I want surrender." And then, in an instant, the watch disappeared, and the only thing left was a question that echoed through the empty space. What if today is your last day? The judgment was no longer future, it was present. The countdown was over, God's midnight had arrived, and whoever wasn't prepared would be caught in the dark. Just after midnight on the heavenly clock, I was led by Jesus into a different vision. It was no longer destruction, no fire, no smoke. It was thy prayer, but not in the way you think. I was led by him, among thousands of people kneeling, in bedrooms, in churches, in open fields, in locked bathrooms, people of all kinds, praying, screaming, begging. But the most shocking thing was that not all these knees were being heard. Jesus pointed to some, and as he did so, a bright light came down from heaven and enveloped them like an embrace. These were the ones who prayed with broken hearts, with true repentance, with a thirst for him, and not out of fear but out of love. But when we passed others, there was silence, no light, nothing. And even though these people were on their knees, crying loudly, his words hit the ceiling and fell back like dust. It was then that Jesus said something to me that tore me apart inside. Many only knelt because they saw the fire, but they never knew me. Now they want to use me as an escape, but I am not a convenient hiding place. I am a refuge for the faithful. I saw pastors kneeling, famous men and women, with giant churches, and their prayers did not go up, because their hearts were filled with pride, vanity, and idolatry. They preached about me, but they never loved me. I saw Christian influencers, Bibles in hand, but with their hearts glued to followers and likes. I saw politicians praying only because their offices had collapsed. And in contrast, I saw a skinny black woman kneeling on the dirty floor of a humble little house. No phone, no internet, no fame, but the sky above her was open. Jesus whispered, "I hear that." Then I understood. It's not the volume of the prayer, it's the brokenness of the heart. I also saw children praying, some alone in locked rooms. Parents mocked God, but their children prayed in secret. And Jesus showed me how these little ones were being marked with light. They would be the new generation of hidden prophets. And I also saw entire homes transformed into fortresses of glory, not because of wealth or structure, but because there was genuine worship there. The word was open, the knee was bent, and heaven was present. Jesus then told me something I will never forget. When the smoke covers the land, the only thing that will matter is what kind of knee you have, whether it's the one that bends for convenience, or the one that was already bent before the storm. The harvest was happening. God's filter had already been activated, and it wasn't about religion, looks, or position. It was about real proximity. After I saw the knees God recognizes and the ones he rejects, Jesus took me even higher. It was as if I were above the stratosphere, looking down at the planet as a blue ball, but it was no longer the world we know. The earth was scarred, broken, transformed. Jesus stretched out his hand and appeared before us as a new map. But it was no ordinary geographic map. It was alive. Places breathed or bled. I saw entire regions gone, especially in the heartland of America. The scars of the Yellowstone eruption were taxed on the continent like open wounds. 4 states were unrecognizable. Montana, covered in ash, where there were once cities and forests. Wyoming, buried, sunken, erased. Idaho, cracked, its rivers contaminated, its hills burned. Colorado, engulfed in dense darkness, like a permanent nuclear winter. But there was bubbles of light scattered amidst the chaos, as if small points of hope still breathed amidst the despair. Jesus pointed to each of them and said, "These are refugees, places where they sought me before the catastrophe, not out of fear, but out of love. And now, I will guard them." I saw small towns, hidden mountain communities, isolated farms, people who lived simply, far from the stage but close to the altar, people who had stocked up on food. Yes, but more than that, they had stocked up on faith. And then Jesus revealed something even more astonishing. I saw a new frontier emerging. The map of the United States as we know it had changed. Submerged coasts, redrawn borders, states that ceased to exist. It was as if judgment had redrawn America. And he said, "It will not be science that defines the new world. It will be obedience. Those who listened to me will have direction. Those who mocked me will be lost." Then I saw people walking like spiritual nomads, leaving big cities, crossing states, forming faith communities. It was like a modern-day exodus. Groups shared what little they had, singing songs amidst hunger, sharing bread and the word at the same time. And Jesus revealed to me, it won't be money that sustains the final days. It will be communion. Faith will be the new food. Worship will be the new currency. But I also saw the other side. Ruined cities became modern-day concentration camps. I saw armed men, drones in the sky, strict control. People were tracked, marked, watched, and those who refused were persecuted. These were the ones who did not give in, those who said no to the system of fear. Jesus looked at me and said firmly, "The new world is being born, but only the broken will inhabit it." After seeing the new map of the world, and the few who would survive not by chance but by fidelity, Jesus took me to the most terrifying place in the entire vision, a place where time seemed to stand still, and screams echoed nothing, only pain. It was like a chamber of souls, a spiritual valley of thousands, perhaps millions of voices. There were those hoodied, unprepared. They were faces I recognized, some from my own town, co-workers, neighbors, ordinary people, people who heard the truth but said, "Maybe tomorrow," people who laughed at the signs, people who thought they still had time. These souls were trapped in a suffocating reality. It wasn't the ultimate hell, but it wasn't peace either. It was the place where regret arrives too late. And Jesus said to me in a choked voice, "They called me, but it was after the door closed." I saw people trying to get back, screaming, "Lord, I believed, I just needed more time." But the answer was silence, a silence that crushed. That's when he asked me, "Daughter, what anchors a man's soul when fire falls?" At that moment, everything became clear. It's not the status, it's not the bunker, it's not the diploma, it's not even the title of believer. It's the root, the depth. It's who you are when everything falls apart. I saw nominal believers blown away by the wind of judgment like dry leaves, but I also saw those who had never set foot in a church, but had a sincere hunger for God, and they were preserved like precious stones. Jesus then took me to simple home in rural Tennessee. There, a family knelt, singing by candlelight, even as ash fell from the roof and tremors shook the ground. It wasn't fear they felt, it was presence. And there, Jesus said something that broke all the fear in me. "These are mine, and when everything around them falls, I will be their ground." I saw the earth again, now, as a spiritual field. On one side, crowds clinging to things that were already on fire. Cars, buildings, money, influence, everything crumbling between their fingers. On the other hand, small groups established in worship. They had nothing, but they had peace. And Jesus said to me, "The greatest tragedy will not be the one who loses their home. It will be the one who loses their soul." The true anchor, I understood, is not visible. It is not kept in a safe, nor is it bought in a store. The anchor is the surrender. It is the certainty that even if the world burns, you belong to the only one who will not be shaken. And he concluded, "Whoever is anchored in me will remain." After all I have seen, the fire, the division of the earth, the judgment covering 4 estates, the souls trapped in late repentance, those who cried out too late, Jesus brought me back to the border between life and death. I felt like I was being pulled back into my body. But before that happened, he spoke one last time, and that last word was the strongest of all. "The door is open, but not for long." I saw a great door, made of pure light, suspended between heaven and earth, and before it, a hesitant crowd. Some wanted to enter but looked back. Others laughed. Others tried to carry luggage that wouldn't fit through the opening. And only a few dropped everything and ran towards the light. Jesus said, "Only those willing to leave everything behind will enter, because in the new world that is coming, there is only room for what is eternal." Then he showed me the Last Suppers, the Yellowstone cloud advancing beyond the mountains, reaching distant cities, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, all covered in ash that cut through the skin like glass. And I saw the people, still unprepared, still waiting for some official notice to come. But he had already warned, by visions, by earthquakes, by drought, by signs, by me. And now for you, I saw my own face again, lying pale in the hospital in Billings, doctors rushing, machines beeping, my body frail, almost lifeless, but my soul burned with the urgency of what I saw. "You will come back," he told me, "and when you wake up, speak, even if they don't believe you, even if they mock you, even if they call you crazy. Speak, because every second from now on is mercy extended, and when the door closes, there will be no turning back." In that instant, I was jerked back into my body. A rush of air rushed into my lungs. The monitors screamed. I heard voices. "She's back! She's alive!" But inside, I wasn't the same anymore. I didn't come back to be the Melissa I was before. I came back as a sentinel, as a warning, as a living witness of what is to come. Now I ask you, and it's not a metaphor nor an exaggeration, if Yellowstone blows up today, are you ready? If the cloud covers your city, if darkness falls over your home, if the sirens are replaced by silence, will your soul be anchored in Christ or lost in chaos? You need not fear judgment if you are on the side of the righteous, but you need to decide now, because the door is open, but the handle is already turning. If you enjoyed this beautiful spiritual testimony, please leave a like, comment, share your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.